I silenced it. Probably something to say. Really? We're not running. Keep here. Yes. I'm excited. Wait till tomorrow. Oh, that's right. That's right. I did. Seven o'clock, please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic.
Wendy Reeve. Here. Jamie Melky.
Here.
Tom Graham.
Here.
Michael Behrman.
Here.
And Kathy Monto.
Here.
Do we have a quorum?
Any citizen comments you'd like to address the board? We know you.
I'm Gail Brown, 25 Gail Brown, 251 East Main Street, and I'm the chair of the DDA. And I just want to share last week at our March 12th DDA meeting, during the public comment, a council member suggested that we give an update to the city council regarding our, now this is a handful, beautification project that is currently being implemented. So as the chair of the DDA, I can't speak for the entire board because this has not been discussed. But I'm here to let the council know if you would like an update on this project or any project that we're doing. I would be happy and willing to work with our DDA board and our director, Becky, to make that happen. So, you know, this is going to be a short chat. The DDA, you know, we're very proud of the work that we're doing, and I see no reason why the board wouldn't want to share our successes and share it with the city council also. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on anything? Yes.
Hi, Karen Ockfield, Bridgewood. So about 2 meetings ago, I was going to speak about this, and instead I passed on it and I sent a memo instead to the Planning Commission. And I believe they agreed with my suggestion, but I'd like to bring it up tonight to the City Council again. What I'm asking the City Council for tonight is to see if you would become involved in a memo or a discussion with Beckett and Rader, our city planners, and ask them if they would be kind enough to highlight and identify the RRC certification requirements in our planning process. As we stand in the, and sit in the audience, some of the, discussions are, we're just not quite sure if this was something that, was going to be part of the certification process or not. And so we'd like to ask, that the city council help us, the community asks that, I get questions all the time about that. And, you know, I don't want to confuse, our RRC best practices with, RRC certification. It's two different things. The best practices are not, unique processes. They simply are an example of really good management, and the research that the RRC provided us included all these best practices, and they came from expert opinions, and they were, you know, they're now readily available to us, without the, RRC, but we'd like to have your help with the, identifying and highlighting them in our planning commissions. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
My name is Yvonne Walker Tishik. I am Harbor Springs resident, and I am the down in Gaylord. I attended a meeting on October 5th with the Archdiocese. They opened the door, inviting us to attend their meetings and to see if they could do something, some form of reconciliation and healing process for members of the boarding school people and residents of Harbor Springs area and the school district. So we went down and I did testify. I'll give you a copy of that, of my statement when I was there. But after that meeting, I also attended the Little Traverse Bay Band's tribal council meeting and voiced my opinion there. And you will also get a copy of that. And the reason I did attend the meeting was I was concerned about the main street and the sidewalk and the lawn of the church. And I know this has been addressed before, but not completely, because there are still human remains there under the sidewalk, under the road, you know, probably possibly on the lawns. But what I am proposing is that Gaylord, Harbor Springs, Little Traverse Bay Bands work together to do non-invasive underground radar, I forgot what it's called. Anyway, to see if they're and where the other human remains are. So if there are a few, maybe we can remove them and put them in our own cemeteries. If there's many, maybe we can declare it a cemetery and close it off and put a plaque up there saying why the plaque is there and why it's closed off. So I think that would be a good way for all three of us to work together and get something done in a good, positive way. So when the church asked me what I felt about what happened to me in the school, I told them that was my form of revenge. But it's a good form of revenge because it's got a good positive end for everybody, you know, concerned, but it's only my opinion. That's my plan for helping the community to heal and to get something done in a good, positive way. So I will leave the statements here with
You can give it to me, I'll pass.
Yes. Thank you for hearing me. I'll be giving you guys copies, and when I leave here, then I will be attending the Little Traverse Bay Band's legislative board. And then they will be working on some kind of legislation, you know, to get something going. And hopefully all three groups can work together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I have come over.
Mr. Mayor,
Anyone else like to speak now?
we do have a hand raised on Zoom. Janie? Looks like it's.
Hi guys, it's Janie Jenkins, 441 Second Street. I can't remember if it was a city council meeting or a parks board meeting a couple weeks ago. They were talking about the parks in the city, and they listed that there were 18 parks within the city of Harbor Springs. And I've lived here my whole life, and I was very surprised to hear that number. So I started to look into it a little bit, and I went to the 5-year master plan for the Parks and Recreations, 5-year master plan, whatever that's called. And I wanted to see where all these parks were and why I didn't know about them. So, the list included all the obvious ones we know about: Ford Park, Zorn Park, Kiwanis Park, Zoll, the skate park, Jardine Park, etc. But there were many on there that I'd never heard of before. And it seemed to me that every open green space or lake access within our little 1.3 square mile town now has an official name and has been deemed a park. I looked at the proposed plans for the green spaces and the parks, and I was a little bit concerned because the proposals include amphitheaters, wedding pavilions, tents, picnic shelters, more signs, observation decks, new playgrounds, ADA walking loops, more parking, stairs, discovery centers, and moving trees from one park to another. There was also mention on there that they are looking to buy more picnic benches. And I was down at the pier this weekend, and I noticed there were 17 picnic benches on the marina green space down there. Then I looked at the parks bylaws, the park board bylaws, sorry, and they state that the duties of the Parks and Recreation Board is to assist the park director with establishing a 5-year plan for development of recreation and parking facilities and programs. I understand that, but I think all these development plans may be tied to RRC requirements. I don't know, but I am asking you, City Council, to take a look at these plans for our beautiful parks and green spaces and reevaluate all of them. I don't think overdevelopment of parks is no longer aligned with Harbor Springs. And in fact, I looked at that July survey too, and that says that the number one concern to the residents were that they maintain green spaces and preserve the green spaces. So I think the city should just focus on prioritizing preserving Harbor Springs and maintaining the parks in their natural beauty. They're a very important part of our historic charm. And I think there's also a responsibility to the taxpayers because it looks like the parks budget was 182,000 in 2020, and now it's 336,000 in 2025. So I just wanted to bring this up and bring it to the attention of everyone so that maybe you could reevaluate where we're going with the parks. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Deanna Mulder, 372 West Summit. And I'm also chair of the Parks Board, and I just want to set everybody's mind at ease. The 5-year parks plan was written way back when we first got started 3 years ago. And it's been a learning process for us. And out of that has come a 12-point guiding principles document that we use whenever we start to look at a project and a park. It includes such things as green space is valued, open space should remain flexible for all of our events. And anyways, to summarize it, I would say that our approach to parks is a light touch. I think some of the things that you saw in that first document were just like brainstorming, and we weren't quite sure what we wanted to do yet at that time. And our plan right now is to slowly roll out a plan for each park. And as they come out, I think you'll see that they're super low impact and focus more on green space and flexibility over development and hardscape. And I hope that sets everybody's mind at ease a little bit. I'd be happy to talk to anybody else though, if there's other questions.
Can we see a copy of your plan sometime? I'd like to see a copy.
Sure, yeah, yep, it's on the city website. Yeah. Our goals, I think, are good, and there's 8 goals, and it has to do with connecting to the community and something for people with all ages and abilities. Taking care of our natural resources, doing environmentally sustainable things. So we try and take a positive approach but also light touch when we think about things.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Go ahead. Talk about last month, earlier this month, I guess. Do you have any comments on?
You gotta go to first, the approval of agenda, item number 2.
I would make a motion to amend the agenda and move the 3 event approvals to the discussion items instead of the consent agenda.
Any other comments?
I'll second that.
Michael Behrman.
What are we gonna discuss?
Is there any discussion on that, before we vote?
You kind
You
of,
want us to-
I don't know, I just, if any, that's fine. We're ready to vote.
That's up to council. I mean, if you want to discuss it prior to. But now.
I can tell you why. I think that in being thorough, the applications are incomplete, and I believe that when applications come to us, they should be completed before we can approve of them.
Okay. Yes,
Well, to remove those items from the consent agenda.
yeah, but
Okay. I
probably got voted in the second to, yes, to remove those items from the consent agenda and add them to discussion items.
All right, Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
David Melky.
Yes.
Wendy Reed,
Yes.
motion carried.
Make any comments on current bills?
You do the minutes first.
we do the consent agenda as well.
The the amended consent agenda.
Do we have a motion to approve them? Consent agenda as amended, removing items C, D, and E.
No, we voted on removing the items. Now we need to vote to approve the consent agenda, which contains 2 items.
Got it.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion?
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Wendy Reed,
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Michael Behrman,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, do you want to talk about the events first, or you want to type it at the end of the discussion items? We can do
Make a
first.
difference.
All right, we'll do it first since they're there.
Yeah.
The first one was the Little League opening day parade approval, which will take place on May 3rd. We'll have a parade, it's like at 10 a.m. works its way from downtown, just west of, State Street at Main, and end up at White Street by the fields. We'll have some concessions, which will include serving pizza and ice cream.
I don't know that. Personally, I don't know that I want to go through all of them individually. I just think that. If it asks for a map because you're closing off roads or you're closing off sidewalks, then the map should be included. And I know that it is on this one, but it also asks for signatures. And I just think that all of that should be completed before it comes to council. I would make a motion to approve of bowling on Main Street because that happens before we meet again, but I think that everything else should be brought back to us once completed in April.
Is the excuse me, the Little League parade, that it don't seem to be, well, I guess, the page, there's one page that's not complete, I see, okay.
Which, are you talking about this page right here?
Yeah,
So I guess Rachel didn't sign this one. When I count the her children, sign it after council approves it. We did review it as staff level, and all these have been reviewed at staff level, so. Right.
Okay, yeah, so. Yeah, I don't either, we've done it forever and, there's a map there. I guess in point of clarification, so does. Oh, okay. Well. It is incomplete, I guess. It's some portions of that obviously would get completed after we meet and give the approval. It looks like, but I'm good with approving that one. There's a map and we've done it forever.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the chamber events, those ones. They do have when they were sent to city staff. I mean, I guess.
receive and review are two different words, and I think that if it is just when it's sent to staff and they receive it, I think that we should update the application so that that's what is reflected on there.
It would be nice to have that page complete, just so that I understand staff is probably met and stuff, but if that page exists, it really should be completed for the record, I think.
And I do support all of these events. I just really would like to see that everything be complete before it gets brought to us.
Not too much to ask, have them fill out a form.
Might make most sense at this point then just to take the whole stack of all the approval of events. If we have a timeline that's capable of allowing that. And have them completed and do them all in one fell swoop.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that the bowling on Main Street gets approved because that's before we meet again.
And I know that, I think it would be important for Little League to get that one approved too, because there's a lot of coordination on their end.
That's fine with me.
And,
They did include a map, so I'm comfortable with that.
right,
I'm hearing it will approve the bowling on Main and Little League at this point.
Everything else can be brought back in April.
I mean, those are the two that are more time sensitive and,
I'm just a little confused because.
Okay.
So the date received there is 3/10. The date sent and reviewed to staff was 3/11. We've all got the email, we all reviewed it, so. I'm confused what else we need from some of these, that's all. I mean, do we need to change this up?
All of the events from the chamber that request roads closed, request a map, and there are no maps included. And I just think that if we are being thorough and we are dotting all of our i's and crossing all of our t's, that we are not approving of things until the application is thorough. If I wanna run for city council, I have to complete an application. If I mess up on it, I don't run for city council. And I just think that we should hold everyone accountable.
My other issue also simply was that there were so many applications all at one time. You know, I guess all the chamber applications for the year at one time. It doesn't necessarily give us all maybe the thought process that we time to think through. And it's hard to know whether the rest of the staff has actually seen it. And I'm thinking about road clothing and other requests, so.
And I guess I would also say I would be comfortable if when there is a big batch of these, instead of having everyone say that they've reviewed them individually, attaching an email that says that they have reviewed them and they are signing off on them. But when it says review, to me, that means that they're signing off on it and not just received.
Just because I'm on that.
Yeah.
just- I reviewed the 3 applications, but you just need our initials on there in the date.
Or
But
just-
Victor sent us an email.
Or an email saying, I approve of all of these.
To all the people
That
that,
would be fine.
probably Lucas, myself, we both reviewed them. You just need the date saying we reviewed them, just to be correct.
I mean, if that's the process that's in the forms, then we ought to do it. And if it's not part of the process and it doesn't have to be done, then
Okay.
maybe
Well,
we change the
I guess
form.
on our behalf, all we're taking is a simple ask and we've done it. We've done it this way since I've been a chief for 7 years. And so a simple ask and we'd have had this done.
Hey, Victor, can I speak real quick? Sorry, it's Rachel.
Oh, yep, you're on the cities, but all right, yeah,
No,
okay, go ahead.
I can't. Sorry, guys. I have the stomach flu. I'm sorry. So, yeah, I guess I'm confused as well. I'm totally okay with that process changing, but we've been doing this process since I started here. Nothing has changed. It's always date received. I sent an email blast with everything by a date. I don't think I've ever put in the exact days. And then I've signed it. I think some applications have even come without this form being filled out. I'm not saying that's correct, but I'm saying we've done this from the beginning. So I think if we're changing the event form, that's a separate conversation to have. And the process.
Okay,
Well, that's whatever the council wants to do there. Thanks, Rachel. So I mean, that's fine. As long as we got clear direction on what council wants, I think it's fine. I mean, it might be worthwhile to review the whole policy and application, since if we're at this point, since none of you were on here when we had created this policy.
how long has it been since we've redone? I don't know.
2019.
So we probably should attach that to, let's review the policy, maybe bring it to you, the review policy and application. That's okay.
So just to be thorough, Taste of Harvest Springs and Street Music, both of them have written on here, we'll meet with Bonnie to sign, but Bonnie hasn't signed it. On the bowling down Main Street, Rachel signed it, but she dated it 3/10/26.
Daylight saving years, huh?
Night of the Arts. It doesn't say when will the tent be taken down, and there should be a deadline as to when you're going to do that. On the tree lighting, it says State Street going west of Main Street, but is State Street going to be closed to the alley or is it closed to Traverse Street? I mean, that, if you had a map as to what you're trying to ask for, that is very clear. And then for the open house, she says State and Main Streets and all over town. Is the entire town gonna be closed down? Because normally the open house, State is closed from 3rd Street to Bay Street and Main Street is closed from State Street to Gardner Street.
I think
That should be spelled out.
I think that is why a map would be really nice. I know that these are reoccurring events, but I think that it's good for the council to be aware of exactly what happens, because we don't walk off the streets. We don't know exactly what happens every year.
Okay. So thank you.
Right, it's, okay, right then. Is it okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
fine.
Yes. Amy Millard, Harbor Springs Chamber of Commerce. So just so that we can resubmit these correctly, can I get a real good list of exactly what you need? And is Bowling Green, Maine, is that something that then will get approved?
I would like to make that motion. I don't want to go through every detail, but the biggest thing for me was the maps for the street closures.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else has anything other than what Wendy just said, but
This, we can do it all correctly,
Yeah.
you know, we can resubmit, but obviously these things will come up and we'll wanna promote and, get those on our calendar and everywhere else and make sure that, people know, because people are calling, they're asking their events that, you know, people love to go to year after year. So we just wanna make sure that we have all of our I's dotted, T's crossed exactly how you want moving forward. And we can be more exact and submit maps and all those good things, but if you can maybe,
While you're up, what was it, one of the chamber events that talked about putting signs at the top of Ottawa?
I think
And I
that,
don't think that's where you wanna put a sign.
So,
it's the top of Arbor.
Yeah.
And so I'm just, maybe that's picky, but
You know, I think probably a lot of this just because they've been done for eons, it's just kind of this, oh, it's an understood. That this is how it's been, so probably, but, you know, we can be more exact with our descriptions and submit maps and all those things. I don't, you know, obviously Bonnie submitted all these for signatures on those, but I know I've been working with chambers and cities for years and years, and, you know, sometimes it's how many signs do you want to put, and there's a max of 15, and so we say, yes, we're gonna put 15. Do we need to put exactly where we're gonna put them? I haven't always in the past, because sometimes it changes, you know, a little bit here and there. But if that's something that you want, let us know.
thank you.
So this is the request to post temporary civic signs. It's for the Harbor Springs Annual Skeletor, and the date is the entire month of October. But then the message to appear on the banner is info about the car festival being the second Thursday in August. How does that work?
Okay, so I printed these front and back, which was great for saving paper, but now for looking through. Great. Wait. Maybe I didn't print that out. You guys have that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so here's the, no, that's not it.
It's the page before that one.
Looks like
this
there's
one right here, that's on the
Yeah, right
screen.
there.
some language that might have been left in there from copy and paste.
Oh, maybe. Oh, probably. Yes, I would say that needs to be deleted, info about the Star Festival being the second Thursday in August. So no, there's a banner that is just welcome to Harbor Springs and enjoy the Skeletor and kind of where all those.
I would just double check all of your applications and we'll review them again next month.
That's what Donna mentioned.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
But I would make a motion, if there's no more discussion, to approve of the Little League opening day and bowling on Main Street.
I'll second that.
Kathy, my.
Ready to go?
I'm ready to vote.
Hey, I'm calling you first.
Yes.
Wendy Reeve. David Melky.
Yes.
Tom Graham. And Michael Behrman.
Yes.
We got 2 out of the 30 done.
Start or finish?
You want the same thing, the shade days, or?
I think we can do it next month. In my opinion.
Alright,
On to the discussion item.
okay, the first discussion item is 4A, which is the police vehicle replacement bid selection. So in our 2025 budget, we include about $75,000 for the purchase of a police vehicle to replace our oldest vehicle in the fleet. This includes a cost for the new vehicle as well as to install the computers and system into the vehicle. Chief and I received 4 different quotes, and the 2 lowest quotes came in together at $47,493. We do have, our bid policy states that we go with the lowest quote. But we do give a local vendor, we can give a local vendor the quote if they are within 5% of the low quote. And here's, they're both the same, so that is why we're recommending we go with Bowden's, as they're located in Petoskey, while as Longhammer Ford is located in Owasso. So I don't, Chief, if you want to add anything to the process here for.
You have the summary that I gave, and I give Brown Motors credit because since I've purchased cars up here, they've never gave us a quote. And so I talked to Derek at Brown Motors and trying to get into the commercial business part, so I was pleasantly surprised by that. And he matched Longhammer, who we purchased several vehicles. They sell probably 1,000 police vehicles a year. So for Brown to step up, and that's a really good price, so I was pleased with that. Talked to Kathy a little bit, we'd like to go with the hybrid again because that's economical for us. We idle a lot in the winter, so that the engine's not running all the time, saves us a lot in gas money. And then the other thing that I was approached by some of our Ford people in town, and we have obviously Ford people in town. They would really like us to have purchased electric Mach-E Mustang. They have the police vehicle now. I'm not ready for that. I've done a lot of work on it, and I'm planting to see because it's something that we might get a really good price on next year. There are some in place. New York City has like 400 Mach-E Mustangs and.
0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
We don't need that. But I look at the economic portion of it, but I'm not ready yet. So I did do a lot of work on that. I didn't reflect it in this report because to me, it's not an option right now. It's still an unknown. But next year when we come back, it might be something I look at. The Fords have really been contacting me about doing this. They thought it'd be great for Harbor Springs since our affiliation with Ford. But also I gotta be practical with everybody's money. So we'll see what happens next year. But I think that this hybrid from Brown Motors is the best way. So, any questions? And then the only thing I spoke with Victor, there's a big difference between the 75,000 that's budgeted and the 47,000. We have to redo the whole inside of the car, includes a computer. The computer itself is $4,000. That computer is 5 years old. They recommend every 5 years replace. So that other underlying cost, they say, where's all this money going to? Is to refurb the car, put new lights in it, put a new console in it, because Ford Smart, they redo their inside of their cars every 3 or 4 years. So you have to buy new equipment like the cage and the back seats and stuff like that. But we reuse as much as we possibly can. And the outfitter that we use is Procom out of Mount Pleasant. They do a bang up job for us. You can talk to any of the guys and they like the job that they do. They're reliable, they're accountable. So that's where that extra money will go. Okay.
How much is that extra money?
Extra money, well, if you take 47 minus,
You have 27,000 to play with.
yeah, and it's about, I'm hoping, I just did like, I do a budget analysis of what I anticipate our cost to be with some of the quotes from Procom. I'm hoping to be about $7,000 under budget. So it'd be 67, that's my hope, it's in my thing. I just laid it out, like we gotta do the inside of the car, then I have to have it restriped to have, or have it striped, I should say, and then I have to have the decals pulled off the old car to get it ready to sell. And I anticipate, I know we have one sitting out there that the city uses. I anticipate selling either that one or the one that we have, and that money will go back into the general fund. That's what we've done with all the previous cars besides that one is straight back.
So it's gonna be about 20,000 to retrofit the new car.
Correct. There's, I think the cost for Procom's 18,000, roughly in that ballpark, and then I still have to have it striped and then get the de-striping of the old car. Does that answer one? I have it written down, I just don't have it here. But I budgeted, I was hoping I'm gonna be under budget. I can serve them all.
Thanks.
Good,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a small correction, when we do sell our vehicles, that money goes back in equipment.
Sorry,
Sorry, no, just for the council.
It doesn't go in highlight.
Doesn't go to general.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the police vehicle bid from Brown Motors.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Tom Graham,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes,
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Michael Behrman,
Yes.
Wendy Reeve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, is the Harbor Master Building project bid selection. So as you know, we bid this out last year. We received 2 bids last year, one for about $2.5 million and one for about $1.98 million. So we decided to, at the request of council, to redo the bid documents to narrow it down and also to bid it out for a longer period of time, before construction start date. And we ended up with 5 different bids. As you see the bids there, the highest one was about $1.6 million, and the low bids were both around $980,000. So city staff scored it based on our scoring criteria. And you see the scores and the costs of the projects there. So the 2 low bids, architect Mark Bidet, he examined them and contacted them to let them know they were the 2 lowest bids. Had asked them some questions and got some more details from them. And as you see, they're both relatively close to each other. And there's also some differences in how they charge for change orders, their hourly rates, percentage markup. For example, Ironwood charges 15% for any general contract additional markups, as well as Van Concord is 6% charge up. So there is differences how they calculate extra costs that are not included in this base bid if we ever have to, if we needed extra costs or have a change order. So the low bid, as I said, this is about $1 million lower than the low bid we received last year, which is what we were hoping for. We were hoping to be under $1 million, so we're glad we're there. We have some other costs though that we have to also keep in mind. We do have some remaining payments for the architect. He is also the construction project manager for the project, so he still will be paid out throughout that process. And we also have to keep in mind contingencies related to any change orders and some unknowns given the economic certainty around tariffs. Cost of materials could, skyrise. We just don't know yet. So we have to keep a bigger buffer than normal for contingencies. Normally we'd want something like 5%. Here, I'd say 10% more would be smart for contingencies just in case. So with all that in mind, we have, a project that could, overall cost could be anywhere between just over $1 million to, $1.12 million or more, based on contingencies and remaining payments to the architect. So the waterfront fund has about $1.2 million in cash on it. So it could theoretically cover this project in whole. But we also have alternates that we might want to consider, and the alternates are, one of the alternates, the first one was paving the parking lot. Throughout the course of this project, for about 6-7 months or more, the construction equipment will be staged at the Harbor Master parking lot. It's already not in great shape, but with more construction vehicles and equipment located there, you could, it might be wise to have the parking lot, that part of the parking lot repaved. This would be just a section where the Harbor Master building is. It's not the entire waterfront public lot there all the way to the pier. However, we're talking to Lucas, Public Works Director, and that entire lot will eventually be repaved within 10 years. So, one of the questions is, do we just patch it up after this and then, repave the whole lot at one time, or do we repave this section and then repave another section in the future? So that's something to consider. We want to do that alternate. The second alternate was a mini split to allow some air conditioning into the laundry facilities in the Harbor Master office, which is not needed. It was just something that we took out of the bid that we had last year, and just put as an alternate, just in case, something that we wanted. It's not necessary. Mike Johnson's and Harbor Master said it wasn't necessary, but we did include it as an alternate. So those are the, potentially, those alternates, if we do them, could add up to $60,000 to the project if we did that. If we use only waterfront monies, that would leave, depending if we did alternates or not, potentially $80,000 to $180,000 in reserves. And that's, well below the 75% threshold we'd like to see in reserves that we normally typically spend around $600,000 a year in the waterfront fund, and 180,000 would be under about 30% reserve. So I would take our reserves, get them a little bit low. Other options that have been suggested previously over the course of several years of using both waterfront monies and general fund monies. And one of the justifications for using general fund monies is that significant portion of the costs are for the building's public restrooms, which are open to anyone visiting the city and not just the boaters. However, some reasons not to use general fund monies, and I'm just telling you the reasons that I've heard, the main reasons I've heard from people and the past discussions that we've had, is that the bathrooms are only being renovated because we're adding a boaters laundry facility. So that's why we're doing those bathrooms right now. And the other reason is the waterfront exists to improve both boater and waterfront amenities. And the public bathrooms are waterfront amenity, just like the four public bathrooms and the beach bathrooms. So those are some reasons to do or to not use general fund monies. If we are going to use general fund monies, there's two different ways you could potentially do it. And Nick can expand on this if you have questions. But one is to just say, here's some money from the general fund, give it and dedicate it to part of this project. Or you can have what's called a long-term advance from the general fund to the waterfront fund, which is basically just a loan. And then the waterfront fund would pay the general fund back over a course of several years. I did include a chart here of what that could look like. So if we spent 80% of the project in waterfront funds and 20% general fund, which is $220,000, a 5-year repayment schedule would be $44,000 a year from the waterfront fund to the general fund. And to give you an idea, we usually see anywhere between $60,000 and $100,000 in revenue. So I should say in surplus, operating surplus, if there's no major projects from the waterfront fund. So going forward, a $44,000 annual payment could be feasible and doable. That's if council wanted to do a loan instead of just using the general fund money. So basically 4 questions. Should the city go forward with the project? And if so, which should the city do the alternates? If that's yes, yes or no, which contractor should the city choose? Our highest score went to, the lowest bid went to Ironwood, but of course there's more factors than just that council should consider. And then how should the project be funded? And that's where we get at whether or not general fund dollars should be put toward it. And if so, how much, and should be a loan or an advance or just a contribution. So Nick, I don't know if you have anything to expand on that.
You covered it pretty good. The long-term advance is used in municipal government amongst funds for things like this. I can see the argument for both sides of, their public restrooms are going to be open to everybody in town. I can certainly see justifying general fund dollars to that. That. I guess the only question I would have of council, I would not like to see the waterfront fund cash and fund balance depleted almost to nothing because of this project. They still have to operate. There's some pretty big ticket items out there if something were to break. It would just be money if we depleted the whole waterfront fund, if something happened, the general fund's on the hook anyway. But I guess other than that, keeping that in mind that we don't want to run the reserves. This is what the waterfront fund has been saving money for 20 years. So, and I think personally, from what I've seen, I don't know that we're going to get any better financial situation for bids and whatnot. I think it's just going to get worse as time goes by. So that being said, leave a little cushion in the waterfront fund, and then I'll allow council to figure out, any money from the general fund, how you want to feed it.
It benefits both the population, everybody. So I think some city money and some the waterfront fund makes sense.
And I would add that we feel comfortable that both the lowest bidder, Ironwood and Van Kalker, could do the job equally well. We have no concerns with either of of the companies. So, again, lowest bidder was, Ironwood, and it just went higher on the score sheet, but that doesn't mean that Ken Colker can't do a job. I think they're both equally, and they've both done several types of related projects throughout the area, not just Harbor Springs, but Petoskey and townships. So, I guess I would just suggest, you can either ask me questions, or if you want to hear from the public first, then ask questions. It's however council wants to do that, just keep this organized.
I think I would like to hear from the public first. There's already hands raised.
Agreed.
Yeah. Public.
May the audience like to speak on the subject? Right, Karen.
Hi, Karen Stroud Donnelly, 644 Ann Street. Mine's more of a question that is related to grant monies. If we had completed the RRC certification, would this be the type of thing that we could have applied for a grant for? I'm just curious, and if not, since we can't do it now, are there other grant monies out there that we might want to go after?
So to your first question, it's possible, yes, they do have infrastructure grants, because this is in our downtown. Second question is, we did, after we went the first time for a DNR waterway grant, and we rejected it because of certain provisions that if we did not live up to this certain parts of the grant, that the state could take over the municipal marina. We checked again last year to see if they changed those conditions, and they really didn't change those conditions. So we could apply again for a DNR grant, but they would have the same exact conditions on their grant. So
I recall that.
Yeah.
Yes, I know we've been talking about this. I've been on the Harbor Commission for the last few years, and we've been talking about this for a long time. So hopefully we can just make a decision and move forward in some way. And I know the waterfront fund has been protected for reasons that all the mechanicals and electricals that happen down there, that we really would have a problem if we depleted it, and therefore couldn't access the money we needed to do the repairs to bring the boats in for the summer and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Anyone else like to speak?
we do have a few hands on Zoom. So Lisa's iPad, if you go first. Yeah, I'm assuming that's.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Guys, this whole thing, we started with trying to get a laundry facility because when I gave a presentation showing all the marinas in the area, Charlevoix, Petoskey, Traverse City, Bay Harbor, they all had laundry facilities of at least 2 washer dryers. They had a lounge. They offered reservations, which we are going to try now. But we did not have any laundry. We had no boater. And we were charging the most for our marina. And that's really how this started. And when it decided during the discussions to find an area for the boater laundry, 2 washers and 2 dryers, it came up about the safety concerns that the city had regarding the public and the public restrooms and the adjacent parking lot. And that's how we talked about we would move the restrooms to the west side of the Harbor Master and use that vacated area. We could use it for this 2 washers and 2 dryers. So combine the 2 projects. That existing restroom is about 200 square feet that we're going to reproduce on the west side of the building. We were going to try to reuse the toilets, the sinks, have no windows, no fancy skylights, no fancy tile up the walls. We wanted a basic, clean, safer for the public so they could enter from the Marina Park side. We would gut that old restroom. The plumbing and electrical's already there, so it could become the laundry area. Now, getting a laundry area, 2 washer dryers, we're still not really competitive with the other marinas. At least we're going to try the reservations, and I think we might be able to get some more transient boaters and some of the loopers to come, and they will come to Harbor Springs and spend money. But now this public restroom is really driving the project. So the monies should not be coming mainly out of the waterfront. All we wanted was 2 washers and 2 dryers. And in Annapolis at their marina, they put those washer and dryers in one of each of the boater restrooms. They use one of the shower areas. They put the units in there. and they call it a day. I really don't think we should go forward with this at these prices. It's not fiscally responsible. Our budget was $600,000. We should stick to that. We should scale down the project, get rid of the fluff, get creative. And I would only agree to those bids of $1 million if we were doing a total building renovation and we were gonna get a boater lounge and we were gonna get a little coffee kitchenette, and that would make us competitive with the other marinas in the area. Thank you.
Just one clarification, that $600,000 was an estimate from several years ago with this exact design that was designed five years ago. Yeah, I believe that was Lisa. So I just want to clarify that. All right, Maureen Kenny. And just remember for everyone on Zoom and in person to state your name and your address.
Kenny 134 West Bay Street. As a project exists right now, without Mark Boudet serving as the project manager for the job, what are the expected architecture fees?
The fees that the council approved in 2023 were 10% of the total cost of the project.
So that's roughly $100,000. Okay, so a fact that the public should probably be aware of, and this current city council, when the two bids came in, Mr. Boudet came in with the contract at 10% of total project cost. So imagine if this project went through at 2.3 million, he would get $230,000. There was another contract that came in from Aline Kaiser in Petoskey. She had a flat fee of $67,000. No percentage, nothing based on project cost. So we're looking at $100,000 versus $67,000. That could go to a washer or a dryer. So our city manager and prior city council approved this 10% contract, not even knowing what the project cost would be. Plus, Mr. Boudet, who was awarded the contract, also sits on the planning commission. The optics are kind of bad on that. And property owners are now paying attention to the city spending. And I just echo what the police chief said earlier today when he was talking about the cars. I respect his fiscal responsibility in explaining that to the taxpayers. He said he wants to be practical with everybody's money. So let's be practical on this project. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I don't see any more hands.
One guy,
Yes, sir.
this, Gary Goppigan, West Traverse Township. Just putting my finance hat on, good info, Victor, thanks. If the difference between the two bids was only 10K, I get it, I always want to go with the low guy if the service is the same. But if the difference is 10%, but the overage is what, 6 to 12%, so is double. And if your materials are 500,000, that's going to be $25,000. So even though they're the low bid, just keep in mind, if you think, and you guys know from projects, how often you're going to go over. If you're going to go over, it may be worth, if you go this route, going with the Van Kelper versus Ironwood. If it's only 10K, you're going to spend more than that in overage fees. So just comment from the
Nope, that's a good point. There's about $16,000 difference when we got the finalized base bids, and it would probably be a cost. We would have to do about $200,000 in change orders for that, the cost to even up, if you're talking about general contract change orders. So we don't anticipate extra cost of materials that high, but that is a good point that it could go. There's a small chance. That's why we're having 10% contingency fees calculated that inside there.
Any other questions from the board?
Actually, the only question I had was, well, and this was a question with both of the two low bids, asking about when we're doing the asphalt. So part of the reason for doing the redoing the parking lot is because the construction equipment may damage the parking lot as it is right now, and since it's already running into the end of its useful life. But they're all saying, these both say, do part of it in the fall and then the rest of it in the spring. So I'm a little confused. If you do part of it, then do the construction, aren't you damaging what you just did? Or what am I missing?
Hi, Stefan. You can go ahead. Yeah, I was gonna have Lucas speak, but you can start. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. To hit the button or so.
It's fine.
Hi, my name is Mike. I work for Ironwood Construction, so I was just here to hear how the whole process is gonna go. I'm here, I'm sure most of you know Serenity, she's on vacation, so she asked me to attend. As far as your question about the parking lot, we do have to make some sanitary connections that were because of the added bathrooms. So we will have to saw cut the asphalt. We'll make the necessary repairs as we do that work. But then come in the springtime, if there's anything that got messed up, we would take care of that in the spring and handle that through the course, because through the course of construction, you're right, we will have some possible damage. But we do have to cut the parking lot to get the sanitary through.
Okay.
So that's why there's the two phases.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks.
We do have a question. I think Bill McCullough on Zoom. He had his hand up earlier, went down, but you want to go to him. He's the acting chair of the Harbor Commission, so. Bill? Hey, Bill. Can't hear you.
Not there.
He's unmuted, but can't hear him. Sorry.
How's that?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right, sorry about that.
He's our IT guy.
I know, rub that in. I'm not passionate about the lounge and a lot of laundry. I mean, we could stick it into one of the shower stalls, I suppose. I like the idea of rerouting all the traffic, the bathrooms on the side and all that. My primary comments would be how the city, because we pretty much just decided we're doing this, we put it out for bid. How you want to pay for it internally. And I'd suggest that we at least consider the downtown development funds to help offset some of what the harbor fund would pay. Because we could, I suppose, we could just decide not to have the public bathroom there and we just put the laundry there and then leave it for the rest of the town to figure it out. But that's not how we do things. So anyway, I'd like to see the thing move forward the way it is. And internally, I'd like to see the Harbor Fund maintain a reasonable balance, both to protect us from eventualities and so we can do other stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. And just clarification, any funds that would be used from the DDA, that's up to the DDA authority to approve those funds. So just to clarify that. So you can ask the DDA, but it'd have to go to them for a vote to see if it meets their downtown development plan.
Makes sense, that's part of the DDA area.
Seems to me, I remember seeing in their documents that it was one of their goals was to work on downtown bathrooms.
I think they wanted to add, I think there was correct me, I could be wrong, but I think it was about adding bathrooms downtown. So there is something about bathrooms there, yes, but I don't know if they specifically had anything about the public bathrooms at this marina.
Any other comments? Been quiet. Out there, sir. Why don't we talk about the electric projects?
Well, wait.
Well, we have a discussion item on the floor here.
Go ahead.
So I definitely don't want to see the Harbor Commission's funds wiped out either. I think that would be a huge mistake to make. On the other hand, you know, we also need to be stewards of our, you know, of the taxpayers' monies. I would be favorable in looking at floating a loan. I think it's a 5-year repayment schedule. I would be in favor of that. I think that's kind of a middle ground. And you know, I think we should go ahead with the project. We've been looking at it for a long time. When you think about where we were with it, I don't know, when was it, at the beginning of the year? Or $2.5 million in scaling it back. I think the bids came in favorable, you know, everything considered. And we want something that's going to look nice. The public uses that, they see that. For many people, that's the first kind of point of entry into our city, and I think that's important. People park at that, it's probably our most used parking lot for downtown. I think that's important. So I'm in favor of going ahead with the project, and I like the idea though of us floating a loan. I don't have, you know, what's the preferred percentage? I'm not sure. But that's where I stand.
Thank you.
I asked a question. Is this something, could we accept the bid knowing that we're gonna pay for it without deciding today exactly how we're gonna pay for it? Like percentage and all that kind of stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd also like to add, just clarify something, just because Ms. Kenny had brought it up. The architect, while they do get 10%, that half of that's probably already paid out through the design process. So it's not like they're just going to get, this design process has been going on for 2 years. The second thing, just a point of clarification, Ms. Kenny said that I had approved this along with council. I did not make a recommendation for any architect. I just presented council with the 2 architects, and it was not my approval. So I think that's a point of order that needs clarification. Just wanted to throw that in there as well.
Do you, I mean, how many motions do we need to?
You don't need,
here?
I mean, the only motion you really need here is to award the bid to a contractor. You can then decide after that if, you know, we can talk another time about how to split the money. But I had posed those 4 questions just to have the thought, you know, the organizational thought process.
We need to decide, should we go forward with it and to which contractor do we award?
Yeah, do you
bid,
want to spend,
basically?
basically, do you want to spend this amount of money on this project?
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think the funding does matter because you know, I guess I want some assurances that Harbor Commission's funds won't be washed out leading up from this. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
I agree with you. I don't think that I want it all to come out. I just don't know that I can completely wrap my head around if it's gonna be 66-33, 80-20, if it's gonna be a loan versus a gift, or we're gonna split it in some way. I do wanna see the project move forward. I think we've been talking about it way too long, and I don't think it's gonna get any cheaper. I don't think that I'm in favor of either of the alternates. I walked through the parking lot today, and I don't think that it makes sense to do part of the parking lot when the whole parking lot's gonna be needed to be redone in the coming years. What's your next question? Can you scroll down one? And I think the low bid makes sense, but I'm comfortable with either of the low bids.
Is about how the project should be funded, and the reason I put the 80%, 75%, and 66% categories there is because I don't think our waterfront fund wouldn't there are years where they make less than, $70,000 in surplus, so they wouldn't be able to do a amount higher than that, unless you had a 10-year advance, for example. Then if you extended that from 5 years to 10 years, then you could cut those annual payments in half from, $73,000 to, 40. So anyway, that's just something to think about. It doesn't have to be a 5-year. That was just an example I threw in there.
Did the planning commission approve the plan, or has it gone by them?
This, yes, I don't know when, but it's been a while, but it's gone to the planning commission. It's went to the harbor commission for a decade. But yeah, it's been to the planning commission.
The last time they built the harbor. Remember the last time, you weren't here, but you were, Jim. They built the new harbor master built a nice tall roof. Hoffman designed it and they didn't go through the planning commission, so they had to cut it off. That's why it's a flat roof. They just cut it down and roughed over.
Yep.
I'm also in favor of the plan. I think the loan makes a lot of sense. I mean, the dock fell in down there, the waterfront fund would pay for the whole thing probably, although they might come to us for money, I don't know. Definitely waterfront, that harbor master building is part of the whole dock. Great quality.
I think when we're talking about financing and commingling monies, the harbor commission directs council with their thoughts. They're an advisory board. This is all taxpayer dollars and user fees from docks. So that's why we tried to keep it for the construction of new docks that generate revenue. But I personally would look at it and say, I'd like to see at least 450 to 500 grand left in that waterfront fund. I think there's 1.25 in there now. To me, the 75-25% makes sense. 275 from the general fund, 825 from the waterfront fund, and then a repayment plan. And that's.
I could maybe go for, I was thinking 80-20, but 75-25 might be okay, but I don't even see it as a loan. I see if it's a city bathroom and city facility that general fund is responsible for a portion of it.
And that certainly can be made, yes.
We want to make a motion?
What are you?
Well,
I see all the sides of that, and I think that I would like to be able to look at the budgets and see exactly how all of those, like if we were to gift the 25 or use the 25 from the general fund, what that would do versus a repayment plan. I guess that's why I am not necessarily in favor of making that decision right this second. But I do agree that it shouldn't be completely out of the waterfront fund.
So the general fund has about $3 million. I made a small note here. In operating reserve funds. That's likely where I imagine Nick, you would make the recommendation to take that, whatever money from the general fund from that. So right now we have over 75% in our operating reserves, which is where we strive to be at. Taking $300,000 from that $3 million, takes us to $2.7 million, which is still around 70%. So we're pretty healthy there. Anyway, just to add that there.
I think I'm ready to make a motion, if you can scroll up to that, yeah. That we award the project to Ironwood Construction, for, do we need the costs included there? $974,205 and $70.70. That the city council discussed at a later date funding that would either loan or pay for 25% of the project to be determined. And we do not include alternates at this time in the bid award.
Any further discussion?
Second.
A second.
I'll second. Nobody else.
Okay, Tom Graham.
Oh, yep,
Yeah, go ahead.
comment,
Sure.
question. Is this including the alternates or not?
No, he said no alternate.
It is not. Okay, I wanted to make sure I had that clear. Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Michael Behrman,
Yes.
Lenny Reed.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, moving on to item 4C, which is a letter of intent for bonding our electric projects. So as we've been talking about all along for our substation, one of the things we were looking to is securing a bond for the project. Part of that bonding process is the city must adopt a resolution issuing a notice of it. This informs the public that there would be a proposed bond issue for paying part of the cost, acquiring the substation as well as constructing it, equipping it. And it would include a new electric substation and transmission line. So this is basically a notice going to the public. Once noticed, the city must wait 45 days before issuing the bonds to allow residents an opportunity to petition for the bond issuance to be decided about the bonds. So if someone collected 10% signatures from 10% of the registered voters, this could go to the ballot. The bond question could go to the ballot. So once that timeline expires, if there is no petition, then the council would need to adopt a resolution authorizing the issuance of a bond. And that resolution would then determine the amount of the bond issue to be financed. So we're not deciding how much to bond for tonight. However, it was recommended based on some of our important projects that we have coming up, that in our letter, we are recommending an amount not to exceed $10 million. So council can begin thinking of how much it wants to bond. That $10 million bond would cover the following projects, which after discussing with staff and electrical engineer were the most important projects coming up in the next 3 years. And the reason we chose that 3 years is because when we get the bond money, we have 36 months to do those, complete those projects. So those 3 projects, of course, are, one is a substation, which includes the construction and materials, as well as an associated 46 kV transmission line rebuild. Together, that's about a $6.5 million project. We also have M119 line rebuild, phases 3 and phases 4. We've been working on phases 3 diligently here, but it's been a long process to acquire the easements to bury lines on M119 West. Phase 4 is not going to involve burying the lines, but this process is because MDOT, just a reminder, some of you are not as familiar, but we were going to redo those, rebuild our lines going out toward Birchwood. The state said they don't want us doing any construction work on the south side where our lines currently are, so we couldn't go there and disturb the bluff side. So they said they wanted the lines to come back to the other side of the road. But the other side of the road didn't have necessarily enough room in the right of way, so we have to get easements. So this has been a long process. Anyway, that's a project, and together phases 3 and phases 4 conservatively could cost about $1.5 million. That goes up every year because we have costs go up. So, but that's what we're anticipating. And then AMI metering as well is a project identified as pretty crucial to replace residents' meters with this advanced metering infrastructure.
What is AMI metering?
Best to describe that, I could, but I think Lucas is on, so let me get it. Yes. Lucas, if you want to go on a little bit about the AMI metering.
Sure. The AMI metering, which is the advanced metering infrastructure, what that does is it allows the meters to kind of talk to each other so that they can send the meter reads to a centralized location, which would allow us, like if somebody, for an example, it would be if somebody called City Hall and they wanted to know what their usage was for that exact point in time, utility billing could look up and get a real-time read, which would it would basically, for the most part, putting in the infrastructure, it would reduce the time that we have to go out with a pickup truck and the meter reading equipment and things like that, and physically go to the proximity of each meter to get a read every month. And it would basically allow those reads to be captured and put into our billing software without having to drive all over the entire electrical grid.
Thanks, Lucas. So with all those projects, we come to an estimated cost about $9.5 million. Of course, the amount of the bond, the interest rate, and the repayment timeline will actually determine the annual bond repayment. And that annual payment will determine how much money we have to do future electrical projects. We have a ton of electric projects in our capital improvements plan. Not all of them are urgent, but we do have a lot of undergrounding, reconducting, and there's a lot of different electric projects that would have to be pushed off if we're bonding and having to repay. So our electric system upgrade plan would be less aggressive than it is currently in our capital improvements plan. The closest example that we could find of a bond repayment schedule, just so to give you guys some insight on what this could look like, is the Sewer Authority's 2002 system improvements. That project total cost was about $5.9 million, so close to our substation cost of $6.5 million. So it's a very good analogy here. So that interest rate was 2.5% for that bond, which we're not going to get a 2.5% interest rate. That's just not going to happen. The repayment timeline was about 20 years. So the annual repayment was approximately $375,000 based on a $5.9 million bond, $5.9 million bond and a 2.5% interest rate. The authority ended up spending or paying $7.6 million for that project, which was 30% more than the total projected cost. I'm sorry, the total project cost, because when you pay back your bond, you're paying it back with interest. So in a project like this, if we're seeing a 3.5% higher potentially interest rate, you're talking about a project that could be up to 140% of the actual cost of the project. So we need to keep that in mind. So if we're taking out $10 million in bond, we're going to end up paying $13.5, $14 million overall. So that we need to keep that in mind. Our 2021 electric system rate study accounted for these projects when developing rate structures. At that time, they assumed a $5.5 million bond for the substation and a 5% interest rate. So much lower amount for what we're proposing to get a bond for, but also a higher interest rate than we might get a lower interest rate that we could be at 3.5 to 4%. So our rate increase plan included about these projects. The other projects in there, the AMI metering and the phase 3, phase 4, those weren't included as bond payments. They were just included as using cash for those projects. Of course, the cost of those projects has gone up since 2020, 2021. But I wanted to reassure that we're not looking at, any kind of major or rate increases, an inflationary cost of living kind of rate increase, 3%, 2% annually we feel would be sufficient to keep up with our regular current costs anyway. So it's not like we take out this bond and we're going to see a massive increase on your electric bill because of it. That's not what's happening. We already accounted for that when we did the rate study in 2021. Again, I just want to emphasize a decision on the total bond amount doesn't need to be made today. What really the decision that needs to be made today is that we put out this letter of intent in the newspaper and start that 45-day period. And then once that 45-day period for public to potentially do a referendum if they want, then we come back to council and decide exactly how much we want to bond for. Nick will then, city clerk will have more information on interest rate, repayment schedule, and other details that would help us come to a specific recommendation of what we can. So, any questions? Next here.
So is the decision already been made about the AMI metering?
No, that's something that,
Because I hear concerns about them catching fire, burning your house down. So I think that the DPW can drive around and check a lot of meters before we spend $2 million doing this and then putting people's houses in danger.
well, I think the point, which is a well-taken point, that we could have our electric engineer and DPW come in and explain these projects in detail. So before council makes a decision, we can weigh the pros and the cons before you make a decision whether or not to include these as part of the bond process.
Yeah, it can scale back to just a substation and the 46 kV lines. My thought process with at least putting $10 million out there just for this purpose, which means we're obligated to do nothing. You got to try to see in the future and think, all right, here's the amount of money that we're bonding for. Here's an estimated amount of a payment that's going to be annually. It's going to hinder us. These payments are doing some of these other projects. So they're trying to manage cash flow in 10 years down the line without knowing what's happening 10 years down the line. So yes, we can take parts and pieces out of this. All this letter of intent is as Victor had stated, just so we can go to the next step and find out what are interest rates. What's the, what are the terms? Then more information will help you guys decide what to do and what not to do.
I move that we proceed with the letter of intent as requested.
I'll second.
We should, there is public comments.
Yes, Karen.
Hi, Karen Longfield, Bridgewood. I don't think we understand well enough. So if the letter is going into the newspaper, and then there's a 45-day period when we read the newspaper and read the notice. And if a group of community members didn't like this idea of a bond, I don't know why or why not. But then they would do a referendum. And how long would that be? And then is this for an election in May? But if you guys approve it tonight to go ahead, are we approving something that the community doesn't understand? Because it sounds as though the community is under an obligation of understanding it, because we only have 45 days to decide to do a referendum. I'm still confused. Maybe you could explain it.
I think you got it in a nutshell. That all this letter of intent that goes in the newspaper will start the clock as soon as that newspaper is issued, and the 45-day countdown will start. Within that 45 days, a person or a group of people or whatever collected 10% of the signatures of voters. All that would do is delay the process being made by council and put it on a ballot in an election, and I would assume probably November.
Any other comments? Judy.
Hi, Tiff Easterwood, just outside the city limits. I'm concerned too, Wendy, about the AMI meters, and if we've had enough research into the various generations. When they started, it was probably 1.0, then probably 2.0. And as it's gotten increasing with data retrieval and sharing, I think it's worth looking into before we commit any kind of decision on it. I just wanted to put that out there as a thing to look at. Maybe we could separate it out if it turns out it's something the city doesn't want. Just worth a look. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion?
Comments for anybody? Anybody else in the audience?
I do have a motion by
Yes.
Kathy Macho and seconded by Jamie Melky to move forward with the letter of intent being posted in the Harbor Light on Wednesday. And that will start 45-day clock. So Tom Graham,
Yes.
Wendy Reeve,
We don't have another city council meeting for another month, so that 45-day clock will run out before we meet again.
It'll be in, it goes in next Wednesdays or this Wednesday's, next Wednesday's paper, probably.
issue it to Charles O'Neill at
Yeah.
8:30 in the morning. So
Okay, so this will go this Wednesdays, that's the 19th, so we're talking about early May, so we'll meet again at council. Yeah.
No, don't we have a meeting in April
Yeah.
21st?
Yeah, we'll meet again, so we'll meet again in 30 days before this.
we want meeting with it.
Okay, yes,
So yes.
yes.
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
Kathy Macho, you got my orders mixed up now.
Yes.
Michael Behrman,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Eyes by, motion carried.
Okay, so also associated item 4D with the substation, is purchasing of substation transmission line materials. Some of the materials, we are going out to bid for materials in advance, because some of them have several weeks. Lead time, so we need to start ordering materials, especially before costs potentially go up. And the bids you see before you are for an insulator, conductor, and optical ground wire cable for the 46 kV transmission line. Each low bidder is highlighted in green there, so we had 4 different companies bid on all of the, well, except for one of them. The Border States insulator bid was incomplete, but for the most part, 4 different companies bidded on all 3 projects. And you see that a different company got the low bid for each of the materials, sorry. Just a reminder, this is for the transmission line project. When I broke it up in the previous memo, we had $1.8 million for the transmission line rebuild, and then $4.7 million for the substation. This is the transmission line that'll be done first and then connect to the substation line. This transmission line is going back from the existing substation. So these materials are necessary for that, and some of them will come in 8-12 weeks. We hope to have this project, of course, started in the summer. And we'll be coming back to council for more purchases of materials. Remember, the transformer has already been purchased. And something that we didn't mention out loud here, but the previous section was that the transformer can be included on the bond. So even though we purchase it, we can also use bond money to pay for it, except for the first installment. There's a rule that you can't use that bond money for anything that's more than 90 days. Any payments made 90 days before this letter. So the first payment of that transformer was already made several months ago, but the second payment for that transformer has been made. So just that's not related to this, just wanted to throw out the whole financial picture there. So we already purchased a transformer, and now we're purchasing materials for the transmission. For the actual construction of the substation, we'll be coming back with 3 or 4 different bids. There's several projects. It's not gonna be one company doing all the different all the work. We're gonna bid it out different parts of the project to for different companies to bid on. So that's what you see here. So I recommend purchasing the products from the low bidders. Of course, none of these are local bidders, so there's no, our local purchase policy exception does not apply.
Who is Irby? They have no address.
That's a good question. And that's a good question for electric engineer. He would know who they are. I don't know if Lucas has an idea. Irby, where they're located. So you see the bidders here. Yeah.
Oh, Irby.
Yeah, they don't have their location. So sorry, Wendy, I don't.
They are a larger company that's been around for a while. I don't know why the address is not on these bid documents, but
I do know that I think we use all of these different companies for materials.
we do a lot of work with, yeah, all of them. Resco, Powerline.
Well, I would like to make a motion that we approve the bids to all the low bidders as presented for the insulator, conductor, and OPGW cable.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, any discussion?
Yeah, is there any benefit? I didn't see it, but as I was looking at this, to just using just one contractor for all?
They didn't. No, they're not bundling that
Okay.
for a discounted rate. For example, if you do all insulator, conductor, and the cable from one company. Yeah, no, that wasn't part of it. I was thinking the same thing, so.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Michael Behrman,
Yes.
Wendy Reeve,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
Tom Graham.
Yeah.
Motion carried to approve the bids.
I did search Irby just to let everybody know, when I was looking, they're all through the United States, there's actually a branch in Michigan, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Oh, you found, they're all over the United States, but there is a branch.
Thanks, Chief. All right, the next item is Pine Street Chip Seal Project. And Lucas is on here, so if we need him to answer questions, we can, but I'll just give a quick summary here. Is the 2025 budget and the 25 to 2030 capital improvements plan, we budgeted $100,000 for a chip and seal project on Pine Street between Hoyt and Arbor, as well as to include that section of Arbor Street with the maps in there. You probably saw it. When Lucas further reviewed this, he recommended we change the project from a chip and seal project to a mill and fill project. Even though the chip seal project is less expensive, the lifespan is much shorter than the mill and fill. The mill and fill, you're gonna replace the top layer of the asphalt rather than just a superficial coating. So the sub layers of asphalt and gravel are in excellent shape, and by milling off the top 1.5 inch, and you replace it with fresh pavement, we could have an excellent surface for 2 decades, potentially more. So Pine Street was fully reconstructed in 2006 after a water main was replaced. So the cost estimate for a mill fill project is $106,000, which is roughly in line with what our $100,000 goal is. However, Benchmark is being really conservative with their contingencies estimate and is wanting to include 20% for contingencies there. So it could bring the total cost under $27,000. That again, that is very conservative, and usually we've seen more like contingencies between 5 and 10% historically. If council is comfortable with that price though, because it could potentially be higher than we budgeted, I would recommend doing the project as a mill and fill. Of course, chip and seal, as I mentioned, would be cheaper and get us under $100,000 relatively easily, except that, we just don't think it's going to last as long as a mill and fill. So this is really to bid out. I mean, we could bid out the project and those bids could come much lower, or they could come higher than that $120,000 project. So we're not asking for you to commit to that money, but for us to bid it out and then see what the bids come out of. The schedule for advertisement would be this Wednesday for a month for a bid policy. We think the project will take about 1 week. And we want to allow the project to be scheduled potentially in the summer as well as the fall. We usually try not to do construction projects in the summer. However, Pine Street's used pretty heavily by the high school students, so might make sense to do this as a summer project, so we'll leave that open at this point for council to decide, and that's up to you, but we figured leaving also a larger time frame between June and October for when a company can do this, or a contractor can do this project, could bring the cost down because they could be in the area, be like, oh, we can knock this project off a week, and it might make the project costs come down. So that's also the benefit. Instead of just saying you have to do this in September through November, it might make more sense financially. So that's that. The road will be closed to through traffic, but it still allow local residents to access the property for the vast majority of time. And Lucas, I'll ask you to unmute in case there's anything else you want to add to what I said there.
Yeah, the only thing is we would, if it is allowed to be, the construction allowed through the June 15th through October 15th, that would definitely exclude work around any of the holidays, the entire week of any holiday. Nobody wants that type of stuff going on when it is super busy. And then one thing about the bid, the projected cost there. There's two line items on that estimate. One is the adjust drainage structure cover and adjust water shutoff structures. And there's 9 units each on the drainage structures and 13 units each on the water shutoffs. And that's $13,700. There's only probably about 3 water shutoff valves that need to be adjusted. So that $13,000 will definitely be significantly lower because we will not have to adjust all 22 metal structures that are in the roadway.
Thanks, Lucas. That was helpful.
I'm glad to see you're getting away from the chip and seal. Asphalts last so much longer. Any other comments from anybody?
I would not like to see this happen in the summer. There's 11 houses that are affected by this before Oak Street, and after Oak Street, there's 9. And if Easy Street, I think it might have an alley. If it doesn't have that alley, there's another 5 houses there. There'd be 14 houses there. And that's the time when most of these houses are occupied. I'd rather see this happen September, October.
And this is something we would need to decide today before we put out the bid, because we want to let the contractors know when they do the project. So again, this would be approximately a week-long project. And I explained the reason why we want to do this. Of course, this is council's.
You go back.
You can go back. Yeah. So Wendy was talking about the map.
No, I appreciate that.
Don't blow it. You want the line items or this?
Just. So. We need to approve the project.
To go out to bid, yeah. But in our bid documents, we need to let the contractors know when.
We need to have the dates.
When they can do when they're gonna do the project.
Okay, Kathy.
I'm fine with approving the project, but I can't say have a strong feeling about the timing, to be honest with you. If the price turns out to be significantly better, I don't see a problem. But timing isn't a concern for me, so somebody else needs to put that in there.
Okay. Michael, you're gonna make it on.
Oh, okay.
Jumping down the line.
Okay.
That's a lot of pressure.
You can handle it.
Would it make sense to just say they can't do it for those 6 weeks, like July 1st to August 15th?
We could put whatever,
I mean, I'm just asking because Wendy mentioned summer's not the best, but I feel like those are the 6 weeks that are really, there's holidays in there, there's,
This is the best one. It gets pretty quiet after August 15th. You can feel the time.
I mean, I don't think we want to do it regatta week. I don't, so I feel like leaving out maybe even just the month of July does kind of make sense, but I do want to see the lowest bid possible, and if that betters our chances, then I'm okay with that too.
The other, the school used that street all the time in the morning and in the afternoon. It's only for 15 or 20 minutes, but it is get used by the school a lot. The school kids and parents.
What alternative would we have?
Go up Lake Street. You just come down. So that'll work as well. So I agree with Wendy, that ideally it would be like between like August 10th and when school starts would be like a perfect scenario. Or from like June 10th when school gets out till July 1st. But that's your guys' choice. I know that, I mean, I drive that street every morning and there's a lot of cars on there that use that to get to school, to the high school.
I think though that it would only really affect it for 5 days, because it's supposed to be a 1-week project. I know that it's not ideal, but 5 days of inconvenience.
You can handle phone calls, right?
we'll send out letters to.
Yeah.
We'll send out letters to the residents there on Pine Street regardless of what, before the project starts, so. And we'll let the school know too, so. The 3 options I heard were June through October, what we put there, eliminate summer or take out certain weeks like July or something like that. So those are basically however you rephrase your motion.
I'll make a motion then and we approve putting the bids out and the job to be completed between August 15th and November 1.
I'll second that.
Right. Kathy Macho.
Oh, geez. I don't particularly like the timing, but so I'm gonna say no.
Amy Milky.
Yes.
Michael Behrman.
Yes.
Wendy Reed.
Yes.
Tom Graham.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thanks. And thanks, Lucas. Appreciate your comments. Okay, the last item on the agenda was boardwalk discussion. This was a request the mayor sent to me to include on the agenda.
So I walked on the boardwalk, the eastern portion of the boardwalk myself. I took my life in my hands and hurdled the barrier. Because it's been, I don't know, 8 years since I walked on it. And it occurred to me after I got up to the top of it and saw, we have a fantastic view from there. You're at the height of all of the rooftops. And I mean, you're really high up there. That it isn't fair to ask the citizens in town if they want to keep this or not, when they haven't been able to walk on it since 2021. If we couldn't ask Benchmark to take a look at it and tell us if it is safe enough for people to walk on it through the summer and the fall, and then give us feedback as to whether they think it's a good thing to hold on to for the city or not. It's not fair to ask them to make this decision when they can't access it. But I don't want to take it on myself and say it's safe. I want somebody else to say that.
Back when we made a decision to close it, it was based off of the decision from and advice from both Benchmark and DPW that it was unsafe. So I don't think it hasn't been made safer since then. So I would recommend doing that because I think that boardwalk needs to remain closed for liability purposes. If we open it and say, hey, yeah, it's safe to use and something happens, then we're just asking for trouble. Lucas, if you want to maybe just add to the potential hazards there and why the original reasoning for closing it in the first place back in 2021.
Yeah, I would agree with you with the liability stance there. It was determined that it was a liability at that time, based on, I crawled underneath it and took the pictures of the shifting foundations and things and the lack of support under certain areas and the cable ties that were to trees, that were broken and different things. So I think I think we would really need to have somebody say that it was not a liability, and I don't think we'd be able to find anybody that would put their name on the line to say that it was not a liability. So I think it would be very difficult to get a recommendation from any company, let alone Benchmark, to give their blessing on, yes, let's have the public on this structure.
Thanks, Lucas.
I don't recall when the original decision was made in 21 to close the boardwalk.
Around November.
Yeah, whenever that was. Was that, was it an analysis? Was there a particular issue with the western boardwalk or the eastern end of the boardwalk? Was there a difference in the safety of the two paths?
It was entire boardwalk, but Lucas, you can expand.
Yeah, it was both sides kind of equally. The eastern portion is the one that had a significant amount of shifting, and lack of support underneath it, just because it had been in the past cabled off to trees. Some of the trees had died and such things, so they weren't supporting it. They were just guy wires that were tied off to different trees. And that was part of the determination at the side, but it was definitely that eastern portion was deemed unsafe at that point in time.
And that is, the decision to close it was ultimately mine. It wasn't, so the city code puts that authority for the city manager to close unsafe structures. So I would, unless, like Lucas said, unless we had an engineer that came out and said this is safe to use, I would not reopen that board. I'm not going to put that liability at risk on the city.
But did Benchmark concur with the decision to that it was unsafe?
Yep. Lucas, I know you
at the time that we were researching this, I had spoken to several architectural engineers as well as Benchmark to see if anyone would be willing to, go to bat for it to keep it open. And I could not at that point in time find anyone that wanted to. I can reach out for more people to see if there's any interest, or if anyone has any suggestions of people who I could contact. But I know at that point in time, nobody was willing to put their name on it as far as it being a safe structure.
I don't think it's a good idea to open it up after you've closed something for almost 4 years because you deemed it unsafe. I would say, oh, I guess it's safe now. Well, what'd you do to it? Nothing. I don't think it's a good idea to open it up to the public.
I definitely don't think that we should spend money to go back and get more designs to determine if it's safe, but I do think that thinking outside the box and, you know, questioning, I see where Wendy's coming from, that the public hasn't been on it in a long time. I don't know if it's possible that the stairs are safe, that we could open just those stairs so that people could walk up and we could have like a plaque there or some kind of thing that says, this is what we want to do, and they can actually see that there's no stairs or less stairs than on the other side, because to me, that's the benefit of the eastern part of the boardwalk, is there are significantly less stairs and it's more of a gradual incline to get to the top than on the other side. So I do think that thinking outside the box is great, but I don't want to open it if it's unsafe, and I don't want to spend money to make sure it's safe.
Are you thinking even, or Wendy, were you thinking of like, maybe could we even just, if it's safe, open just like the bottom part?
And that was I just said that bottom stairs so
at
that
least
people could
can't
actually see.
I know you can't get up top,
Right, but they could see.
up higher.
Yeah, it's not connected to the western part.
I know, yeah.
It's a one-way trip.
Oh, I know. So that's why I'm saying if you just from the bottom could go up a little ways, if that would help what you're thinking or not.
If that's safe enough to do that, any little bit might help. I mean, the citizens kind of gave us confusing. They don't want to lose the easement, but they don't want to spend any general fund monies on it.
Right.
So they really want somebody to sail in and hand them $600,000 and say, okay, here you go. So you're buying a pig in a poke. You don't know what you're going to get.
Have we ever looked into repairing that, the eastern portion, to get Lucas get numbers on that or anything, or just say, get rid of it and start over?
The whole eastern boardwalk?
Yeah.
We do have some rough, I mean, we talked about this a few meetings ago. We have a rough estimate of what it costs to replace it. What are you talking about, just repairs?
Yeah, repairs.
No, I mean, Lucas, you can expand on that, but the repairs are really structural in nature. They're not like the wooden boards, they're the structural part.
Yeah, walking surface is probably all right underneath.
Yeah. And that's true, right, Lucas? It's the structure, the support.
Yeah, the supports and the concrete footing type things that are structures that are underneath it, that those are the major issue. The actual top portion could be redecked and things, and maybe potentially reuse some of the understructure, but all the supports would need to be redone for sure.
Lucas, do you recall about the stairs, the condition of the stairs structure support was?
The first set of stairs that come off of Gardner, and it actually leads up to it's a very small kind of landing right there. None of that is elevated, so there would be potential to move where we have the sidewalk closed sign up to that, the first set of steps that are built into the hill, which I guess would give people the option to walk up and look left up the path. So I think feasibly that could happen, with very little effort.
All right, so I guess what we'll do then is we'll just have Lucas re-examine those stairs and see if he thinks it's safe to a certain extent to allow people to walk up to it.
I also appreciate them thinking outside of the box, Wendy, and maybe that is, if that is safe, maybe that is a place to put up donation placards, imagine this, type of thing. If that indeed was deemed safe and structurally in good shape.
Time, empty your pockets here.
Yes.
Yes, Steve.
Real quick, an option would be between Nate, your son, or the high school drone people. They could run a drone up there at a head level, just if you wanted to, we could put on the city website or something, like a video. if it was deemed not safe, at least for people to see it.
That's a good idea.
Excellent.
Thinking outside the box.
Thank you, Chief.
Between your son Nate, or I know Rob at high school, they're flying their drones all the time this year.
They're pretty popular.
Do you have a public comment? Zoom. Mr. Mayor. Bill McCullough. Hey, Bill, you can mute yourself.
Too many buttons. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was just curious, it seems like there, at either end of that boardwalk, there are small segments that wouldn't cost that much to repair. Would that affect the easement question?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Can you restate your question?
Would repairing the stairs going up a little bit to the landing or east a little bit from the reconstructed part solve the issue with the easement so that we would buy time to put this all back together?
Well, the easement, as Attorney Raymer has said, is 15 years, right, Jim?
And actually, in doing some further research on this, it actually is a street. It became a street by virtue of use and expenditure of public funds on it. So in order to abandon it, the city would have to make an affirmative decision. It'd have to agree to abandon it. Until then, it exists. So the time element is really not important.
So as long as we don't abandon it, it's we got all the time in the world.
And you have it is yes.
Thanks for all you do.
Appreciate it. And I would also add to that, understanding that the staircase comes off of Gardner Road, and that is a separate easement that we retained from when we abandoned Gardner Road there. Gardner Street. Yeah,
Extension of Gardner Street.
Yeah, so that the staircase is separate from that highway by right easement or that we have for the eastern part of the boardwalk. So that staircase, even if we were to abandon that, we'd still have to separately abandon the staircase. So anyway, just to put that out there.
No decision.
So, yeah, there's no decision is made other than I'm has to talk to Nate and about drones, and we'll look at the safety of the staircase. That's great. Okay, moving on, I think we're wrapping up here, city manager report. Let's see this, so yeah, we are working as the public have commented, we are working on a reservation system with the DNR that council approved last year, so that system should be up in place for the summer boating season. Many of you probably seen if you drove down Main Street, the Historical Society has completed installing a new roof on Old City Hall. It looks really nice. Our Parks Director did attend a Michigan Parks Conference in Traverse City in the week of March 3rd, so came back with a lot of valuable information there. And also throwing out one of our, because it's coming before our next council meeting, Easter egg hunt will be on April 19th this year at Soren Park from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. Oh, it's in the newsletter, but it's not. But yeah, Cups Masonry is the sponsor, so thanks, Jamie, for pointing that out. And just some basic stats, and a couple of MPPA meetings this week. It's quite regular. I have MPPA meetings more than any other type of meeting. So, and is there any questions from city administration perspective? All right, I do have something for old and new business when we get to there. Well, we got to do boards and commissions first, so I'll let you guys do that. Who wants to go first?
I'll-
Do we have openings?
I'll talk about the Parks Board. I don't remember the date, but we did meet and we talked about Harborview Park. We went over different master plan ideas and what could be done there. Probably not anytime soon, but maybe someday. We also talked about what Rachel learned at her conference. That sums it up.
And the ZBA met last Wednesday. We approved, we had a zoning variance request for, I think it was number 5 Beach Drive. That was approved as was requested. This was a plan that was designed with the zoning code that was repealed in mind. So that was the reason that we had to do. So that was part of the reason we had to do the variance, was because we needed to, you know, approve it because it's not in conformance with the current zoning. So.
Sounds like I made a dumb mistake, huh?
And excuse me, Planning Commission met on March 6th. And we reviewed red line versions of Articles 13 and 8. And then we, for the first time, reviewed Article 6, which is site development standards. So really starting to get into the meat of the proposed new zoning code. Lengthy discussion ensued on parking spaces, which will be continued into our next meeting this Thursday as well.
Thank you. I attended the DDA meeting on the 12th. In particular report, but I was surprised they spent most of the time talking about architectural zoning, which we don't have. They seem to be concerned that the theater was gonna has bought that back unit and then they'd brick it off and just have access from the front. I guess, I don't know what the plan is. Keep the access on the street and not block it off. They're concerned about, which right now I don't think they have any saying.
Any other boards, question reports? No. Yeah, Harbor Commission didn't meet, tree board, we talked about it on March 3rd meeting, so. We're all good. All right, Mayor, old new business really quick, because we don't meet until April 21st. Our undergrounding utility policy states that, if a resident wants to request to bury transmission or distribution lines in front of their house, the city has to obtain a quote. But our policy says I can't obtain a quote without going to council first. So we have someone who's along the transmission lines, lives right there along Bester Road, and they have transmission lines and distribution lines. And they want to know the cost to bury those because their neighbors are going to have theirs buried as part of this substation project. So they want to go ahead and see what that cost would be. So because we're moving forward this, I don't think this needs a whole discussion unless you guys want to put in a topic agenda for April 21st, but all I would be asking for is just a consensus to go ahead and have our electric department put a quote together and to give to the residents on how much it would cost to bury those lines. And then at that point, our policy states that if they want to go forward with it, then it comes to council for approvals of actually doing it. You know, then they have to pay for the engineering plans and et cetera. That's the way our policy writes. This is just asking us, authorizing us as staff to get the quote.
You see any issues with it?
Not for us getting a quote, this is quite standard practice. We do it for a lot of people. So for us doing a quote is quite standard practice. I just want to make sure I was following the official policy.
Do you need a motion?
I don't need a motion unless I can get consensus unless there's someone who does not.
I'm okay.
I'm in favor, they're paying for it. Fine with me.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Eventually they'll all be buried.
Councilmember Reed. Okay, yes.
You want me to make a motion?
No, they would just all say they're okay with. Okay. all right. Okay, that's all I have.
I would just like to follow up with Gail about the DDA, and I would like to see an update from the DDA about the unification beautification project. If anyone else is interested in that.
I'd also like to see a report from the DDA on the Merchants Walkway, because I can't get anything out of them on it.
Just let us know
Oh,
when we can present.
we can coordinate it. I'll coordinate with Becky on a date.
You done?
No, no,